Today, we're going to try and decode the Quran by using the one thing that can't be argued with, its own internal language. We're going to explore a pretty radical idea, one that might be hiding in plain sight. What if the Quran isn't a book for one specific group of people, but a universal communication system, a framework designed for all of humanity? And to figure that out, we have to start by questioning one of the most basic foundational translations.
Okay, let's just jump right in and challenge a huge assumption. You've probably heard the phrase qur'ānan ʿarabiyyan translated as an Arabic Quran 1,000 times, right? It immediately ties the text to a specific language, a specific culture. But what if that translation is missing the entire point? Let's put this term to the test, and the only rule is we can only use the Quran's own internal logic to define it.
So, where do we start? Our investigation kicks off with two really pivotal verses in chapter 39. The text itself basically says, hey, these verses right here, this is the key. This is how I communicate. So you know what? Let's take it up on that offer and put them under the microscope. And boom, right away, the text tells us its method. It says it uses mathal, which means universal patterns or examples. And check out who the audience is. It doesn't say for Arabs, it says li nas, for all mankind. This is a huge clue. It's already suggesting that the goal here isn't just about reading a language, but about something way bigger, reflection.
The very next verse builds on this, and it gives us this powerful three-part structure, this communication triad. First, the method is these universal patterns, the mathal. Second, the quality of this communication is described as ʿarabiyyan, and we're going to dig deep into that word in just a sec. And third, the integrity of the whole system is guaranteed. It has no awaj, no distortion. Now think about it. Together, these three things aren't describing a spoken language. They're describing a precise, high-fidelity communication framework. So you might be asking, okay, but how can we be sure what these terms really mean? And that is the perfect question. The key is to let the Quran define its own vocabulary. Instead of grabbing an external dictionary or relying on tradition, we're going to see how the text itself uses these words, consistently, page after page.
Let's start with ʿarabiyyan. The common assumption, of course, links it to an ethnicity. But if you look inside the Quran, it's never contrasted with other languages like Persian or Greek. Instead, ʿarabiyyan is always put in opposition to a'jami, a term that means unclear, indistinct, muddled. So the real contrast here is between clarity and obscurity.
And this is just brilliantly illustrated by the next term, awaj, which means crookedness. Now, the Quran uses this word to describe all sorts of things: distorted paths, flawed systems, twisted meanings. But here's the crucial part. It is never used to describe a spoken language. I mean, think about it. You can't have a crooked language, right? So if awaj refers to the integrity of a system, then the term that qualifies it, arbi, must also be a quality of the system. In this case, it's clarity. And when you lay it all out in a table like this, man, it just clicks. Look at these pairs. You have ḥaqq, which is objective reality, set against batil, or illusion. You have ʿarabiyyan, clear expression, opposed to a'jami, obscurity. And you have awaj, system distortion, as the opposite of qayyan, or straightness. Do you see the pattern? None of this is about ethnic languages. It's all about clarity, reality, and structural integrity. It's a perfectly coherent system. Okay, now for the control case, the definitive proof, where the text itself runs a thought experiment for us. Verse 41-44 is like the perfect test for this whole idea because it directly contrasts these key terms. So the verse imagines this scenario. What if the Quran were ajami, unclear? The text predicts the exact objection people would raise. And their complaint wouldn't be, hey, we don't speak this language. No, it would be, why are its signs not fusilat? In other words, why aren't they clearly detailed and articulated? And that's the heart of it, right there. The problem, as framed by the Quran itself, has nothing to do with needing a translator. It's all about a lack of clarity. The verse directly links an unclear message, ajami, with a failure to explain things in detail. It perfectly confirms our internal definition. The verse then goes on to say that this message is guidance and healing for those who are open to it. But for those who refuse to listen, it's like a shield in their ears, causing deafness and blindness. So this tells us the real barrier to understanding isn't language at all, it's our own receptivity. The same clear signal is either received or blocked based entirely on the listener's internal state, not their native tongue. So let's step back. What does this all mean when we put it together? Well, if we read it this way,
The Quran suddenly transforms into a universally accessible guidance system, one that operates on principles that go way beyond culture and language. This whole universal system is built on a foundation of ḥaqq. Now, this isn't just truth as in someone's opinion. This is objective, verifiable reality. The text says this reality is established by what it calls kalimat, the governing principles of the universe. This truth just is. It doesn't matter if people believe in it or not. And inside this framework, even familiar labels get a major upgrade. A mujrim isn't just a sinner in some vague religious sense. No, functionally, it's someone who actively severs their connection to the system of reality. And on the flip side, a Muslim is simply one who aligns with, who yields and integrates with that system. They're not static religious identities. They're descriptions of your real-time relationship with reality. And this brings us right back to where we started, to the purpose stated in those first verses, to produce taqwā. Immediately after laying out this whole framework, the text tells us exactly what the state of taqwā is. And it's not about performing rituals. It's about recognizing the truth when you see it and then affirming it. It's a cognitive and behavioral alignment with what's real. So the entire system flows in this beautiful, logical sequence. First, an objective reality, ḥaqq, exists. Second, it's communicated through clear, undistorted patterns, ʿarabiyyan. Third, this communication demands a response from us. We either align with it or we sever ourselves from it. And finally, our outcome is based entirely on that response, not on our ethnicity or language or anything else. It's a truly universal and equitable system.
And this reveals the system's own built-in authentication method. Its validity isn't based on external claims or stories about miracles or historical accounts. It's based on its own internal coherence, its freedom from distortion, its lack of iwaj. It's a self-validating framework that literally invites us to test it for flaws. So we'll end with this thought. If this reading holds up, then maybe the primary tool for understanding the Quran isn't an Arabic dictionary after all, but a willingness to simply engage with its internal logic. The challenge shifts from translation to analysis, and that would make its message truly accessible to anyone, anywhere, who's willing to sit down and reflect on its patterns.